The terror of Deep Nest takes flight, and becomes one of the simplest, easiest, most predictable bosses we have ever fought. This poor guy. Despite his wings, he has fallen so far. Nosk in his base form with his Ascended Arena could be a genuine threat due to his weird projectiles and huge skittery hitbox. But Wing Nosk feels more like the Vengefly King. He does bring a little bit more heat though, packing 4 attacks, starting with the Swoop, Summon Balloons, the Infectious Outburst, and the Infectious Drip. I wasn't kidding when I said he feels like the Vengefly King. The swoop attack is nearly a carbon copy of the Vengefly's main means of offense, sweeping across the stage from one end to the other. The main difference is the size of Nosk, and especially the odd placement of his wings. They may not look like it, but they are hitboxes, perched atop the rest of his body, and so you do need to jump pretty high to consistently clear it. You'll almost certainly need to nail pogo or double jump. Of course, you can also Shade Cloak through them, but I don't recommend making that your primary means of evasion for reasons we'll see later. The similarities to the Vengefly King don't stop with Summon Balloons, as Nosk cries out and summons either 1 or 2 infected balloons into the arena. These are identical to the ones summoned in the Broken Vessel fight, having just 1 health and so dying in 1 hit, no matter what you hit them with. There can be a maximum of 6 in the arena at once, but I think it would genuinely take more effort to keep them alive that long than to just quickly dispatch them. My only real recommendation here is to hit them with your nail instead of spells, as you'll probably want the extra soul, but it's definitely up to you. The Infectious Outburst is highly similar to its form in Nosk's original fight, a series of arcing projectiles spreading out in either direction from Nosk and leaving hazardous goo wherever it lands. The biggest difference stems from Nosk's new behavior as a whole, and the fact that he will always hang out at either edge of the screen unless he's in the process of swooping. So he'll always use this attack from one edge of the screen. One consequence of this is that some of the further flung globs of goo will likely go off the top of the screen, and so be a bit harder to see coming and dodge. However, that's really only an issue if you're trying to dodge this attack by finding a safe spot between 2 globs. What you should really be doing instead is timing your Shade Cloak to ignore all the projectiles entirely. This is also why I don't recommend relying on the Shade Cloak to dodge the swoop, because Nosk will always follow up the outburst with a swoop. And if you're following my advice, your Shade Cloak will be on cooldown when he does so. So here's the ideal sequence for when he uses this pair of attacks. When you see the goo start flying, jump, then carefully time a dash through the blobs. Immediately follow that up with a double jump, and land a nail pogo on Nosk as he flies under you for good measure. Bonus points for launching a Shade Soul at him after he passes. If there's still hazards on the ground after that, you'll still have another dash and double jump to maneuver yourself to safety. At 50% health, Nosk will add the Infectious Drip into his kit, and honestly, the changes to this attack are enough to make me extremely glad for this new fight. Instead of slowly following you across the arena, this attack will drop several drops at once, spread all the way across the screen. This is probably Nosk's most threatening attack, as you only have time between when the drops start falling and when they land to find a safe spot between them. But you can always completely bypass that with a Descending Dark if you want. Nosk won't even finish this attack by falling down on top of you anymore, but instead just return to the side of the stage, posing no threat. Our game plan here is nothing fancy. Since Nosk will do his best to hover out of reach whenever he's not attacking, we'll be getting in the bulk of our damage with the 1-2 punch of landing a nail pogo as he swoops, then launching a Shade Soul after him. He's large and fast enough that your Shade Soul will likely hit him twice when you do this. You'll get much of the soul you need to sustain this strategy from the balloons he summons, and honestly, I wish there was more to it than that. But there are no other tips that I can really offer without insulting your intelligence. Winged Nosk is just that easy. So, all that's left to do now is swat this fly. Let's get into Ascended. Now, obviously, since every boss fight in the Pantheon of the Hallownest has any Ascended differences that they would have had down here in the Hall of Gods, we're not going to be seeing any differences from Attuned to Ascended. With the exception, of course, being HP. So Ascended Nosk here has 1050 HP, up from 750. And we get into one of the main issues with this fight, is that even though it is very simple, it does require a fair bit of patience, just because we have very few opportunities to actually land hits on him. Something. That's what happens when you wear the mask of Hornet. Does it actually change who you are? Hornet's one of the only characters in this game with a proper gender. Who knows? But with the increased HP, I have very little advice to give apart from don't get greedy. With the patterns being so easy to read and recognize, all you have to do is keep at it until he goes down. Against Radiant Winged Nosk, I still have very little extra to offer, but I can at least recommend that if you go in with an Overcharmed build, that you do whatever you can to give yourself as much soul as possible. I've gone in with Soul Eater here, and that is going to make the whole fight go a little bit faster, which of course is going to give me fewer opportunities to make any mistakes, enabling me to defeat the Radiant version of this fight, no problem. Honestly, it just feels weird that the ultimate rematch against Nosk here ended up being way easier. Alright. No problem there. Yeah, that was more of a detour than a boss, wasn't it? But you all know what's next. On the final episode of Hollow Knight Boss Blitz, we will be taking down Absolute Radiance.